But when it comes to, taking up responsibility for the questions that are posted and things like that, I'm sure that you haven't had any problems so far as such, but what's the next step now for moms in Colombo? I mean, where is it going to go? You mentioned earlier about just a website? Yes.
So on the website, actually, we're going to divert some of the questions that we get right now on the Facebook page to an Ask the Expert page. So, and again, it'll get filtered into different types of experts, one of whom is obviously the parenting expert will be Maya. And so that will kind of make it a little more credible in the sense we'll lose some of the effect of 20,000 mums contributing, but it'll also be a little more credible. Some of the questions I think need to be answered in a more detailed fashion with some backup material and proper data. So some of those questions will be diverted towards that. And then we're also starting a discussion forum where we will be discussing things that are really hot, debatable topics like stay-at-home mum versus working mum, and sort of diapers versus and nannies versus daycare is like the biggest thing right now, and Maya has a lot to say about that.
So let's talk about it then. What is better actually, nannies versus daycare?
You shouldn't ask me, because for me it's mom that's the best. So it's not a good
okay, so neither then.
If there's no option and they have a daycare, at least look into the safety factors and the standard of a place.
Yes, because you mentioned earlier as well during one of the breaks that the standards that parents should look into, I mean, they're not being met at all, and there are still children who are left at these centers. So what are some of the basic standards that you should look out for when it comes to a daycare that you're going to leave your child?
There are no basic standards when it comes to a child. It has to be high standard, and number one is hygiene. At least hygiene. At this rate, I mean, that is missing. And of course, a place where the child has some kind of stimuli throughout the day, not just eating and sleeping, because I think they forget this is the most crucial period of a child's life. So I think a parent should look into convenience, but of course they need to look into the concerns of a child's aspects of it.
And the ratio between the carer and the child.
Yes, it should be minimum 1 to 5.
I mean, absolutely.
Minimum so these are all factors that parents should look into, and I'm sure if they ask the right questions on the Moms in Colombo page, then you're sure to get plenty of parents who have gone through the same experience that you're going through right now, and they'll give you some very helpful advice as well. So thank you, ladies, so much. I think that's all the time we have for this particular segment. It's been lovely having you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amber, Maya, as well as Arundhati. And Jason will be coming back with you right after the break, and he's going to be speaking to a few artists who are involved with the Colombo Art Biennale. That's going to be very exciting as well. So do stay with us. We'll be right back on Good Morning Sri Lanka.
Welcome back to Good Morning Sri Lanka. In case you just tuned in, I'm your host Jason. No, I wasn't there in the previous one where they spoke about moms and stuff, but it's all good. I'm back, kicked out of Maya, having the show to myself. Alright, so my next guest, we've actually had our guest before that. Anushka Hempel was here before, speaking about Colombo Art Biennale. And our next guests are here to tell us more in detail of what we can expect at the upcoming Colombo Art Biennale. Now, it's just around, it's actually very close, closer than you think. It's lasting for 10 days, so our next guests are about to tell us a lot more of what to expect. We have, of course, first off, we have Madhika van der Putten. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And we have Anthony Hahi.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Latika Gupta.
Hi.
Good morning to all of you. Welcome to Good Morning Sri Lanka. And you're the lucky ones because you came here a bit later than everyone else, so you got to rise and shine at not very early start.
Yes, that is true.
That's awesome. Are you guys morning people?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I am.
24-hour people. Right?
Yeah, actually.
All
right.
I'm early morning. I have to get kids to school, so.
Ain't that the worst? Kids, yes. Right? Am I right? I don't have kids. But all right. So, Madhika, tell me, what is your role in Colombo Art Biennale? What are you actually curating? You're also supervising a stall, if I'm correct?
No. I'm project managing an exhibition from the British Council called Homelands, which was touring India and Pakistan.
Right.
And it's works from the British Council collection, which Latika curated.
Ah, there we go.
And it was originally a tour that was going around India.
Right.
4 cities?
Yes.
Four cities.
It started in January last year, actually. It opened on the 22nd of January in Delhi.
Right.
Traveled to Calcutta, and Anthony was a visiting artist, and he ran seminars and workshops with students.
Okay.
and gave talks. It moved on to Mumbai and then ended in Bangalore before going on to Lahore and Karachi, and its final stop is here in Colombo before it goes back home, as it were.
Okay, let's take a deeper look into what Homelands is all about. So people watching at home, they're really curious, because now obviously this is traveling from one place to another, and it's finally coming here to Sri Lanka. So what is Homelands exactly?
Okay, so the entire title of the exhibition is actually Homelands, a 21st century story of home, away, and all the places in between. Now, just a little bit about the history of how this exhibition came about, because it becomes a little bit relevant to why it would be relevant to show here. In 2011, the British Council UK asked me to do an exhibition from their collection, which has more than 8,500 works of British art. So
that is a lot of art.
It is, and collected from the 1930s onwards. So it's one of the most important art collections of its sort in the world. And of course, my first reaction, being from India, and I specialize in South Asian art, and I'm not a British art historian, was one of being a bit flummoxed, because one is, of course, you could get very, very massive names, and they have the best works of some of the biggest names in the art world today in their collection, and kind of display them in India, a sort of showing of these big artists. But that wasn't enough for me, so I needed to have an exhibition that would make sense to me. And I feel moving on from there, it needed to make sense to audiences back at home in India, and then of course in Pakistan and now Sri Lanka. So the way I went about choosing the work was very, very personal, and the theme emerged from that, because I actually started, once I was looking at the work, thinking about a question that I know that we all ask in India when we first meet a person, whether it's on a train or a bus or a party, which is, where are you from? And it's, and it's something that is so basic. When we meet a person, we don't ask them, look, what is it that you do? What are the sort of things that you dislike? We ask them, where are you from? As so the answer to that question, answered as the name of one place, will tell us more about the person than anything else about them as individuals. And starting from then, that point, I started thinking about what perhaps a homeland would mean to any one of us. So if people ask me, I would, happily say, oh, I'm a Punjabi because I'm from Punjab. I've never really gone there. I wasn't born there. I don't speak the language. So how am I tracing this sort of lineage? Is it because my grandparents lived there at some point in their lives? Does it have any relevance in my life at all anymore? A Lebanese, Palestinian Lebanese writer spoke about these two sort of heritages. One is our vertical axis and one horizontal. So our horizontal heritage is the sort of peer community that we live in. So including my peers, let's say in South America, that we may have a lot more in common with, but when we're asked to explain who we are, where we're from, we kind of invoke our ancestors. So I also then going to the subtitle, then a 21st century story. A lot is spoken about globalization and its wonderful effects today, with the ability to supposedly be able to move between countries. We're born in one place, we make another place our home, and work in a third place. And I started thinking about whether there was such an ease in moving across borders, because while technologies become brilliant, while modes of transportation may have changed, there is a simultaneous tightening of borders, and it has led to greater insecurities. The idea of homeland security, for instance, is the protection of my country doesn't extend to the protection of my neighbors, let's say, or it is guarding against my immediate neighbors. And as we know is the case in South Asia, it's all the more so. So I was really thinking about all of these questions, and can we even speak of a single homeland anymore? And should we instead then speak of homelands?
Wow.
Wow,
that just blew my mind away. I just found out what homelands is really about. You put a lot of thought into this, huh?
Yes, but I mean, and that's what's challenging and wonderful working with art, because I mean, far too often I think art becomes something that we kind of relegate to the realm of entertainment or decoration or our leisure time. And we don't realize that it tells us something about ourselves, it tells us something about the world we live in, things that we may not recognize in our daily lives. And
so what I'm really curious is how you managed to put that into something people could just stand there and look at.
So the exhibition has a lot of photographs. Anthony, one of Anthony's early works is in it as well, from 91.
Actually, I think my earliest work, which shares a similar name, it's actually called Home. It's made in Ireland. But again, to reflect what Latika is speaking about, you know, this notion of home is no longer fixed to a single entity. It could be anywhere, because increasingly the world is moving for various reasons, across borders, sometimes easily, sometimes more difficult. But I think what this exhibition gets at is this kind of idea of something close to all our hearts, but at the same time, you know, it's something you can't really grasp. But as artists take a really creative approach to that theme, and I think it's also very interesting, the relationship between, say, India and England, for example, because when you think of home, there's a really rich history. India is a post-colonial country, and you know, a whole conversation happens then between those histories as well.
Right. Wow, that's so interesting. So photos is one.
So photographs, a lot of video works.
Okay.
Then there are some sculptures, and yeah. So
I'm really curious though about the video part of things.
Yes.
When I've gone a couple of times to certain art installations, and they would say, "Oh, this is our video art," and it's like a fusion of different styles of filming, and sometimes you wouldn't really get what it says. Why did you go through video to tell your story as well at the same time? And how did you do it? Like, is it like a feature film lens?